I got his thumbs up. We're ready to rock. You all have envelopes in front of you. That is super mysterious, and we'll talk about it later. I got notes up here. I'm going to be doing this.
Everybody, this is Mike. He's our UX architect.
Yeah, I'll be doing that in the next slide. I'll do the thing. Except it's not working. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, that's me. Okay, but yeah, I got notes. Lee wanted me to talk for 50 minutes, and I couldn't memorize 50 minutes worth of material, so I have some notes. Going to be going off of those, but also I wanted to break it up and not bore you to death in the afternoon with 50 minutes of just me talking. So we've got some videos, we got some demonstrations, we got these mysterious envelopes. We're going to have fun. I was told I was the headliner, the last demonstrator here, or whatever, presenter. Okay, my notes say good. My name is Mike Zetlow, as Lee just said. I'm the user experience architect at CHSI. I come from a consumer application background, which is very interesting, working now in business-to-business enterprise software. Enterprise software could use a lot of love in terms of like some of the apps that we're used to on our phone, Spotify, Apple, all these things that are just so easy to use. Enterprise software has always been about, can we just get the job done and help people make a profit? And in doing so, we kind of, some things aren't as usable, some things aren't as user-friendly, and that kind of thing. So I'm trying to apply my consumer application background to everything new going forward and to everything that we have to fix that's a pain point for you. I've worked with some of you over the past year. I've been at CHSI almost 2 years. It's good to put some faces to the emails. I haven't done that with everyone in this room yet. Feel free to grab me after this. All day tomorrow, feel free to grab me. I'll be conducting some good one-on-one interviews tomorrow. Today I want to talk to you about how we can improve Connections based on the job you've hired it to do. If we look at Connections as something you've hired to do as a job, as opposed to a product with a fixed set of features that you have to mold yourself into, but what are you hiring Connections to do? The metric by which it's measured is, does it do the job that you've hired it to do? But the job you've hired it to do isn't always clear, and it's extremely personal for everyone. I want to take a couple minutes, and I'm going to play one of my favorite videos because I'm a geek. But this is a video by Clay Christensen, and he unpacks what he calls jobs to be done philosophy. I love this video. Take a look at it, and then we'll talk. We'll kind of frame our conversation from the perspective of this video.
So, one of the big fast food restaurant chains in America, I don't know if you've heard of them, called McDonald's. They were trying to increase the sales of their milkshakes. And these are very sophisticated marketing people. And if you walked into their restaurant, on the board in front of you are the menu, and they actually have a profile, a demographic profile of the quintessential customer that buys these individual products. And so they had a profile of the quintessential milkshake customer. And it turns out that Clay Christensen fits perfectly in that profile. Well, then McDonald's would invite people who fit that profile into conference rooms, and they'd give them versions of the milkshake that they're thinking of introducing. And they'd ask them, could you tell us how we could improve the milkshake so that you'll buy more of them? They would get very careful feedback from the customers. They would then improve the milkshake on those dimensions, and it had no impact on sales or profits ever. And so we convinced them that there's a different and a better way to think about the situation, and that is, don't understand the customer, understand the job. And we said there's just got to be something out there, a job needing to be done, that is causing people to hire a milkshake to do the job. And we have to figure out what the job is. So one of our colleagues stood in a restaurant for 18 hours one day and just took very careful notes. What time did he buy it? What time was it when he bought the milkshake? What was he wearing? These are almost all males, incidentally. Was he alone? Did he buy other food with it? Did he eat in the restaurant or get in the car and go off with it? It turned out that about half of the milkshakes were sold in the very early morning. They were always alone. It was the only thing they bought, and they all got in their car and drove off with it. So to figure out what the job was that was causing them to buy these milkshakes, we came back the next morning, and my colleague and I positioned ourselves outside the restaurant so that as these people were coming out with their milkshake in hand, we'd confront them and say with language like, look, I got a problem with what you're doing here. What job were you trying to do that caused you to come here to McDonald's at 6:30 in the morning and hire that milkshake? And they would struggle to answer that, but we try to help them by asking, look, think about the last time you were in the same situation, needing to get the same job done, but you didn't come here to hire that milkshake from McDonald's. What did you hire? Well, it turned out that they had all the same job to do, and that is they had a long and boring drive to work. And they just needed something to do while they were driving to be engaged in life and not to fall asleep. One hand had to be on the wheel, of course, but gosh, somebody gave me another hand and there's nothing in it. And I just needed something to do while I'm driving. And they're not hungry yet, but they know that they'll be hungry by 10 o'clock. So they also need something that can just go thunk and stay in their stomach for the whole morning. Good question. What do I hire when I don't hire a milkshake? And one of them said, you know, I never thought about this before, but last Friday I hired a banana to do the job. Take my word for it, never hire bananas. They're gone in 3 minutes. You're hungry by 7:30. And another one said, if you promise not to tell my wife, I hire donuts, maybe twice a week. But they don't do the job either. They crumb all over my clothes. It makes my fingers gooey. They're gone too fast. Yeah, I hire donuts occasionally, but donuts, I'm sorry, I hire bagels. But they're so dry and tasteless, you know. I have to steer the car with my knees while I put the jam on the bagels. And then if the phone rings, I have 3 problems in 2 hands, and I just get confused. Somebody said, I hired a Snickers bar once, but I felt so guilty. I've never hired Snickers again. But let me tell you, when I have this job to do, and I come here to McDonald's and hire this milkshake, it is so viscous. It takes me 23 minutes to suck it up the thin little straw. Who knows what the ingredients are? I don't, and I don't care because I just know it's still in my stomach at 10 o'clock. And it turns out that it fits right in my cup holder. And actually, a great thing about it is if I forget what I'm doing and I turn it sideways, it doesn't flow out. And it turns out that the milkshake does the job better than any of the competitors. And the competitors are not Burger King milkshakes, but it's bananas, donuts, bagels, Snickers bars, coffee, and a bunch of other things. And it turns out... It turns out that in the afternoon and evening, it's hired for a very different job, which you don't need to worry about. But Peter Drucker said the same thing before we thought of it, and that is that the customer rarely buys what the company thinks it's selling him. But if you understand what the job is that the customer is trying to do, then it becomes very clear what it is that you have to do in order to nail the job perfectly.
All right. And so that frames, my thinking when we start talking about what do we need Connections to do for us? What is the job you've hired Connections to do? And Trevor said it earlier. Oftentimes you have some executive or someone else in the organization apart from you who buys Connections and signs on to be a part of partners with us. But then you might be doing something else, or you might have some other sort of aim with Connections. And so it really becomes a personal job, thinking to yourself, how do I accomplish my needs through this software? And that's what I want to get to the root of. Tomorrow I will be doing one-on-one interviews. Grab me. I'll be here all day. I want to know what your job is and what you want it to be and how Connections can help with that. We know there are universal things that you are not hiring Connections to do, and you are not hiring Connections to push a button, and you are not hiring Connections to select an option from a drop-down, and you're not hiring Connections to open a window. But a lot of times I'll get some requests along those lines. These things might be ways to do the job with software, but they're not the job itself. So here's a request, the type of request I'll get. I would like a save and close button in the following window, and then they'll give me some address. And I have to go to the user and say, well, why do you want a save and close button? And they say, well, I work with dozens of these things every day, and clicking one button instead of two, save then close, would cut my time in half. And I think that sounds really good, a 200% positive increase in speed. We used to simply write up a work order, and then the development team would whip it together, and we'd release it, and everyone would be happy. Except we'd end up with windows that look like this. Now quick, which one of those buttons was the save and close button? Okay, there's 9 buttons there. So now instead of clicking 2 separate buttons, you're spending your time trying to find the button because you have a row of 9 to look at. Or maybe you clicked the wrong button and you have to go back and undo something. So maybe it's not the boost in speed you need. If we're talking in the terms of I need this button, or I need this tab, or I need a new window, that might not actually be solving the job. So a button is simply a user interface. It's a way to do what you want. It's not what you really want. Just as an example, I'd like to look at a very famous, one of the most famous user interfaces to understand the interface and the job you want to do. And that is that, clutch, brake, gas. Pedals, they're just like buttons, but you push them with your feet. They're not the job. When you get in the car, you do not view the job as wanting to put your feet on pedals. So if you want to improve the pedals or whatever, that might not be addressing the actual job that you have, which for most people is getting from point A to point B quickly. If we invented the Lexus LC with its 10-speed automatic transmission 100 years ago, we would have never heard of a clutch pedal. It would just kind of be ridiculous to have a third pedal hanging out there because you've got this amazing thing existing, able to shift 10 gears automatically. Likewise, if we have the cars of the future in the past, we would have never had pedals to begin with. What use for pedals do you have here? You can just kick your feet up and watch a movie or read a book. So the job, getting to point A to point B quickly, and that's most people. Some people use a car for another job. But for most people, getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible, the UI doesn't matter. And so if we start addressing the UI and trying to improve the UI, we might miss the overall thing and get left behind as technology advances. We've seen an evolution of the car's UI from manual transmission, 3 pedals, automatic, 2 pedals, autonomous, 0 pedals. Just like your phone, you used to have buttons on it. You used to have physical buttons on it. So if a user says, hey, I want a star button on this device that you're making. We're making a new device, and I want a star button, like the actual raised button. And I would say, well, why do you want a star button? Well, because I want to dial *67 so I can block my number when I call some businesses. And you don't need the actual physical button to do that. You can just do it on a touch screen. But you don't even need the touch screen to do that. You can just have an app that automatically blocks your ID for any call you make to anyone that's not in your contacts. So there's no UI needed whatsoever to solve the job you really want to do. So when we have these conversations, we might say, oh, could we make a tab here or a button here or a window here? I always try and get people to step back and say, what do you really want to do? So here's our button, here's our window with all the buttons. If they say, I would like a save and close buttons to reduce my clicks by 50%, it sounds like what they really want is to do their job more efficiently. If they have hundreds of these windows, these tasks that they have to go through, I might offer a solution that doesn't have to do. If the job isn't, if I'm not tasked with making a button, maybe I can say, okay, you just want things to be more efficiently, we can save this automatically. So then you don't have to click save and close or save, it just saves. And then we can also talk about why do you even need to close this window? Why is this popping up in its own window? Can this be something like Excel where you just enter the values in? So when we really set our sights on improving the job that you're hiring connections for, we see a whole world of possibilities that can make a powerful difference. Here's another one. This was a real issue for a connections user. This is 4 rows of tabs. And selecting a state affects the premium calculation on an endorsement. The solution that was pitched and that the development team ran with was a row of tabs across the top. This is when most of our clients and our customers and our partners had just a couple. So you could put just a couple tabs across the top. When we run into a partner with 30 states, like you see here, suddenly things break. It doesn't scale very well. So instead of that conversation, instead of getting that card that says, hey, can we have some tabs up the top to select a state, we have to slow down and say, hey, what do you really want to do? And the job they really wanted to do, organize the data by categories. Okay, it's simple. Navigate to these categories, show me what category I'm on, and allow me to add more categories in the future and not break it. And that last one is critical. That last one is the problem with what we just saw. None of this has to do with any tabs or whatever. I look at something like this, start with a clean slate, and I'm able to design a solution that looks something like this. For most people that only have a handful, they'll be able to see everything up front. For the people that have more than a handful, maybe 30, you can scroll a little bit down, but it'll show you all the things. It'll show you exactly where you're at. There's no tabs needed. This is just a piece of UI that we were able to develop because it's a solution tailored to best improve the job the user needed to do based on those 4 points. We designed something for one customer a while back, and I imagine the request was something like this. We just want a page where we can click, enter some data about a policyholder, save that data, and use it in reporting. So we built this. This is what we call our policy data sheet. You might have heard us talking about it. This is our first iteration, it's a couple years old. And you can do the features that they wanted, that they wrote up, this click, enter some data. So you would click this edit button, and then you can see it runs off. It doesn't even fit in the thing, but then you hit save change and boom, it's done. So that was what we did based off of that initial feedback, but there wasn't a lot of discovery in determining what the customer really needed in terms of the job they need doing. Clicking, entering, and saving are not the job, and improvements on those dimensions won't help you do the job you're hiring connections for. Again, these are all UI elements, and if we get lost in talking about them, we're missing the job that you actually need. And so when I say policy data, the job you need, and this was done just a couple months ago, we started to rediscover and say, what is the job you actually need out of this? A spreadsheet that acts like a database was a great sentence. Excel, but create policy docs and year-over-year reports. I just want it all to work. Tailored to each individual policyholder. With Excel, I was getting, I have all these tabs of sheets for each individual policyholder, and if I have hundreds or thousands of these, it just breaks down. And easy editing of data and easy to build reports. So what I actually want to do is I want to show you the video that a couple people that have mentioned today, walk you through that and show you how it addresses these jobs that the user needs doing. And it's cool. This is cutting edge. I mean, this is like from the developer's laptop just a couple days ago. No one else has seen this, including a lot of people on our team. So this is what a completed policy data sheet looks like. Policy data, I just said policy data. I don't like the word sheet, but when you have something and you name it once in your company, it just kind of sticks. You just kind of move along with it. But this is what it looks like. This is just dummy data, but this is all user created. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to create something that looks so complicated. And remember, all this stuff hooks into reporting, billing, anything that we need in our database. And even Tyler could use any of this data that they enter here and produce their own stuff with Power BI like he was doing. So we're going to go to an empty category. You remember, this is the same category selector I just showed a minute ago. And we're going to add a section below. And the name of the section is going to be actuarial info. That's me typing. And this is a section of fields, just label, value, much like the old thing, but I'm going to show you the improvements that we were able to make to improve the job that needed doing. I'm going to add the first field, which is study required? So this data is not really going to make a lot of sense, but it's based off of customer use cases I've seen. So this is basically saying, is the actuarial study required for this policyholder? Is study required? Okay. And then I just hit update field. Oh, I'm actually going to hit carry over field value to the next policy year. This is something that the user said they wanted year over year. So the value is always going to be whatever they insert here, every year it's going to be reinserted. And that's crucial for some fields, because why fill out the same thing? If it's required every year, it's required every year. So they hit yes. Now what's really interesting about when they hit yes is that the software is smart enough to recognize that you want some sort of binary choice, yes, no. And so what you can do, you can see here, it just automatically converted it to a yes, no dropdown once you type the word yes. You don't have to go and select, I want this to be this type of thing. And that's a big deal, because like I said, we want to get away from people saying, hey, I need this button that does this. We want to just have the software be smart enough to handle it. We'll add another field. This one will be a date, last completed. So when was the actuarial study last completed? And I think I say 9/23/18. And again, once you enter that, it's smart enough to recognize that it's a date. And you have a calendar picker thing there. We'll do another one. This is just who did the actuarial study, completed by. And here you can just enter a string. No fancy formatting is going to happen. It's just a string. And then finally, we're going to add the phone number of the actuary here. And this is a 702-555-1234. But again, when you tab out, it recognizes that it's a phone number, and it's stored, formatted like that, so that you can use this. It's especially valuable when you go to a policy data sheet. Not only is this something where you can enter in information, but you can immediately view the information in a readable format. So the dates are always formatted, the yes/no question is formatted, phone numbers is formatted correctly. Let's say I wanted to change the date. I made a mistake in that last completed. It was actually supposed to happen last year. Again, here's our date picker. Very easy with one click. I go to the previous year, select the date, and it's done. And everything about this is, again, this is, like I said, a prototype build, but everything about every change that you make saves. Again, why have a save and close button? Why talk about any of that? You just want your data to be safe and saved. So we just do that by default. I'll do one more section. This will be with some numbers, because we use a lot of numbers. And I'll show you how we handle that. We're going to do two fields of numbers real quick. Again, not really meaning anything. One we're just calling premium, and the other we're going to call admin fees. And then you can just type your numbers right again, just like the other things. You can just type them in. So whatever your number is, if you're converting it from however you've collected the data, and it automatically formats it like you see there. So it knows that it's a number. It right aligns it so that you can match numbers visually, and it inserts the comma so it's more readable. You can also copy and paste. So just copying and pasting things that'll still come across formatted correctly. Now I'm selecting that I want to change the type of that number. I want to round to 2 decimal places. So that's what this number 2 type of field means. And I just update that, and I see that now it's added 2 decimal places to that one. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Now what's really powerful about that is that not only did that change that visually here and give you 2 decimal places here, it also changed your data in the database. In the final version of this, it'll warn you, it'll give you a warning, hey, your data in the database is about to change. But that's the power of it, is like now your data is stored like this as the actual number with 2 decimal places. You can run math calculations on this. In future iterations of this product, you can have things that will sum fields or multiply fields or whatever you need. We're going to add one more field real quick, and I want to show you that we can change the type right here. We have something called notes. We can change the type to the type of long text, and you can just type a bunch of text, store it as a note, and the box will keep expanding as you type. So as much as you put in there, it'll store it. And again, it's just being smart. It's trying to be smart, so you don't have to worry about this stuff. And then our last thing, I want to show you that the table functionality that you might have saw on the first page. We're going to add a new section. This is going to be a table section. And it's called fees. It's going to be a list of fees, and you can just keep adding rows. So we set up the columns first, and then you can just keep adding rows. So we're going to set up just a couple of columns here. And you can see how easy it is. You just type it in, add column, type it in, add column, and then the table is generated how you like it to be. You can also carry over this whole table to the next policy year. I think we have one more here. Yep. And we can just put in some text, what kind of expense type this is. Paid to, this is our same person, I guess. And you can see that the numbers and dates, again, even in this table, are formatted. And when you click on the plus sign with a down arrow, adds a row below, plus sign with an up arrow, adds one above. Pretty easy just to store any data, any kind of data, even if we don't have anything previously set for it in our database, it can be stored and reported on. And it knows that it's a date, it knows that it's a number, and we'll do one last row. Taxes. And then you can, again, change the amount, change the column. You can add 2 decimal places. You can add up to 5 decimal places if you want. And it's going to change the data there and in the database so you can do reporting on it. That's about it that I want to show you for that. Oh, I think I'm going to delete a row. Yep, just to show you. It's very easy just to click, add a row below, add a row above, delete, and that kind of thing. And again, the thought process behind all of it is looking at the 4 points that the user wanted right here. a spreadsheet that acts like a database, Excel, but create policy docs and year-over-year reports tailored to each individual policyholder. And again, I don't know if you saw across the top, that was the name of a company. So that's for one company. Now the fields you create will extend across all companies. That's the real power of it. So actuarial study, if that's a field, a group of labels and stuff that you wanted to create, that'll extend across all companies, but the information, the answers is going to be unique. And again, the power is that you can create these policy docs. You can use it and take the data and boom, just slap it in to any of the reports that you create with Crystal Reports or anything on your own. So, self-serve. All right. So now that you've got, oh, here it is. So you saw the end result, these reports. We talked to a customer and they said, that's great. That helps me store and use policyholder data, but what about capturing that data to begin with? Our customers collect data. You guys collect data from multiple channels, paper forms, questionnaire, evaluate, more I don't even know about. The way you've been doing it for decades and then importing in. And the problem is that the data you collect, that you need to collect changes. Sometimes you need to collect new things or you don't need to collect old things anymore. And making changes to the paper forms or questionnaire and evaluate, these are complex tasks, not something that's super easy. So we wanted to build something where you can collect data from customers more easily. And again, these are the jobs that needed to be done. We needed to create self-serve forms for customers, easily change the form at any time, data syncs with reporting and billing tools, and even bind quotes, collect signatures, and payment. As we just saw in the Cimarron example, sometimes you want to just do it all in one go. So these were the requirements that we had, and in doing that, I'm going to show you some very early screens of what we're developing right now. And it does these jobs for the users. First one is this create a form scene. We have a form is made up of scenes, and then in each scene there's questions. And so all the scenes are on the right-hand side for this particular form, and then on the left-hand side you can change the questions, you can add questions. If you have a multiple choice question, you can add possible answers. We have something like 20 different answer types that you can put in there. It's pretty easy. We try to make it as simple as something like SurveyMonkey or Typeform. In fact, even simpler. And then you can actually have conditional routing. By default, you can say it'll just go to this next scene, or if all the answers equal no, you can go to this scene. And so you can have all these different routes, and you can have an unlimited amount of routes, as complicated as you want to make it. And it ends up looking something like this. This is what Trevor showed. This is the result of the kind of building that you saw here. You just build these questions and they show up like this. You can expose this to your customers to collect information. I know someone said PDFs about loss runs and paids. Well, there they are. You can select files right there. You can sign documents right there, and you can have a total show up and process a payment if that's what you want, if you want to go that far. So that's all based on the job that they were looking to do, those 4 qualifications. And when we're developing our new software, that's what we want to ask, is what job are you trying to do when you go through Connections? Tomorrow, I really want to pick your brain. I'll be around. Grab me one-on-one. It can be, like I said, this is very personal, and so it can be kind of weird to talk about it in a group setting, because sometimes, honestly, this is my favorite piece that I've heard about the job you want to do, and it's a good piece of honesty. I want to look good to my boss. And that's true. That's really it. If that's the job that you need Connections to do for you, I need to know, and we'll make you look great, right? Like, how do you, okay, my boss is really into charts and graphs or whatever. Okay, we're going to focus on that, you know? We can incorporate that into here's our underwriting dashboard. We can handle any of it. We just need to know. We need to know that honest feedback. What job are you trying to do when you use Connections? And if it's in front of you, looking good in front of the customers, whatever it is, we can optimize for it and make your life better. But if we never have that honest feedback, we'll be designing solutions that may never address the real job you need Connections to do. So, what job are you trying to do when you use Connections? Right now, you've all got envelopes and pens. This is some back of the envelope thinking, literally. I'd like to take this time, literally, I just want to hear if you have something, as we've been talking about this jobs to be done philosophy and the job that you want out of Connections, jot it down. I'll be going around with this box. I'll just throw them in. You can keep these totally anonymous. I don't, you know, I'm gonna look at all of them and weigh them, but I'm not gonna judge. In fact, I need to know the most honest thing about the job you need Connections to do. And then a workshop like this is a good time to reflect on these kind of meta issues, because when we're in our day-to-day roles, we just are trying to get our work done, and we don't have time to think about this stuff from a 10,000-foot view. So if we can begin to think about the actual job you're hiring Connections to do and express that, your life will be easier. We won't be wasting time trying to build something that's totally useless to you. So take a minute, jot down, what job are you trying to do when you use Connections? And I'll go around in 1 minute here and pick those up. I'll play you a music video from a Las Vegas artist in the meantime. Oh, and don't let your coworkers see, because this is personal. You got to shield it. The thing is, keep it simple. Just one sentence. I want to look good to my boss. Or I want to blank. Whatever it is, that's what I want to know. All right. Go for it. Lead. I will. Yeah. I'm trying to play my most meditative music and show off Las Vegas at the same time. You done, Caitlin? I'll shuffle them up, don't worry. No, just write it on the envelope, back of the envelope. Yeah, that's the slang. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Tyler, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Just throw them in. I'll shuffle them up. Ah, great. Toss them in. All set? Cool. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I don't want to see it. Thank you. Did you get it done? Appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. See one over there. See one over there. Thank you very much. Stephen, thank you. Thank you. I think that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Raise a hand. Cool. So I know that's kind of a high-level conversation about jobs to be done philosophy. I don't know if that's what you were expecting. But I think it's really important because, like I said, I don't want to be focusing on the wrong things. I want to be focusing on the things that are really going to benefit you, no matter how personal or weird or whatever it is. So tomorrow, I'm available all day. My only job is to talk to you. Grab me one-on-one anytime. I'll be hovering. If I'm hovering, that means I'm not booked. But if I'm sitting down talking to someone, then I'm booked. So if you see me hovering, like, yeah, I needed to talk to that guy because we really got to improve this thing. I really need this to make my life easier. So that's what I'll be here for tomorrow. Lee wants me to open it up for questions. I'm all yours. Go for it. Anyone have any questions?
So that form thing that you showed,
Yeah.
is that something available now, or what is the plan?
The form builder thing. Let's see where that was. This stuff. Yeah, this is kind of cool stuff. This is in development right now. This is less far along. Well, it's hard to say, but it's really a priority for us. This and the data sheet, policy data. Gosh, we'll never lose the word sheet. It's just stuck. Even though I'm like a web guy and I'm like, we need to stop thinking in terms of pages and sheets and start thinking about scenes and views because we all have these phones that are, this is not a sheet. I don't view this as a sheet. So anyways, I'll never lose it. It's always done. When you name something internally, it's there forever. But no, it's something we're working on. Yeah. And it's a priority for us because we see that, it'd be helpful. If you can, right, collecting data and then having it, boom, right there, it's inside Connections, reporting off of it, anything, binding quotes even, if you want to go that far. Do you have one?
So this is more so just a way to kind of build out an area where you just want to feed just data to or manually input data. It's not an area that would show you what was already there. That's more
That's
so
true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay.
So,
I was viewing it wrong.
yeah, the other one is both kind of things. This is to give to your customers to be self-serve. So you build a form for your customers, and you give your customers something like this for whatever things. This could be for safety. This could be for anything. And the goal is, can we make this easy? Because form building is actually really, really quite hard. There's lots of if yes, then this, and that kind of thing. So making it easy to make your companies self-serve. And you good?
The fields on the policy data sheet, how do those differ from the demographics, and do you see the demographic field staying?
That's a good question. Do I see the demographics field staying? That's probably beyond my pay grade to know. Richard, you want to jump up? Policy data sheet and how that plays with demographics. Because right now, demographics is kind of that thing where, there's the mic right there if you want. Demographics is that thing where you can select a type.
Kind of your placeholder for everything.
Yeah. I think there's more versatility in the policy data in that you can have these types like the table, the grid, infinite amount, plus the categories. You can have pages and pages of data.
So the big thing about the policy data sheet is I really do view it as the natural progression from the demographics, because the demographics you can't do as of reporting, you can't really do year over year reporting. Oh, yeah. And what I see customers using, I've been here 11 years, and what I see customers configuring these demographics for is a lot of times the demographics, some of those values will be basically permanent. Like their headquarters is not going to move. So if their headquarters, they want to know what state that client has their headquarters in, that's probably not going to move, maybe ever. But then there's other fields that change year over year. And you notice we had a strong point where you tell it, is this going to be year over year persistent? And ultimately, I kind of envision something where on that client, on the company page where the client demographics are now, ideally you would maybe choose a field from the policy data sheet that you want to show on the homepage. And then we would just migrate all of the data. And we would do that, I don't know, slowly, but we would do it in a way to give you guys plenty of time to update reports and things, or maybe just create virtual views to kind of fake the old table structure. We do that sometimes. But yeah, I do see it as just the future of demographics.
A little more flexibility, and the year-over-year reporting is very big.
The big part that we don't have in the admin screens yet is where does this data come from? Because obviously what we have right now in the prototype is we have data that somebody's got to populate it year over year. They've got to populate it. That's not acceptable. In my opinion, it's not acceptable. So yeah, we're going to set it up, and some people are going to use it right away. But one of the very first next versions is going to be allowing you to specify this is where it comes from. It comes from the schedule system, or it comes from the questionnaire, or it comes from, I guess for now, demographics. Yeah. That way, the data is synced. Because the last thing you want is somebody to make a decision based off of a screen that doesn't match a different screen, even though they say the same field.
Cool. Great. Do you have another one?
Yes, so the interface, I guess, to our clients would be through the portal, would be pushed out there. How would...
So capturing information, and that would really be something like this. And yeah, that would be available on the portal. Yeah. So.
Is it something like you can just like make and name a template for each form? And then...
That's a good question. So the it's its own little application or module. So you would select that, and then you would see all the forms that you have made, and you do have to make these kind of self-service forms, or hire partner services. They'll do it, But you make these forms and get them to your users via the portal, via this application, which we've called Agency Portal internally. Again, the names, they come and go, but internally we'll always refer to them as what they
mostly come. They never go.
They never go. They should go. They never go. But yeah, so that's really what it is. Yeah.
So, and this is another example. This, what we call the custom form system, it's just a natural progression of the questionnaire. Yeah. So the questionnaire, we showed off, questionnaire is super, super complex, and basically there's only one person in the company who can make changes for you, and it's not you. Yeah. So we don't want to have the Urias system just run the configuration and changes and be like, well, I hope nobody wants any changes this year. They always want changes. Yeah. So yeah, this effectively replaces it in the long run. And a big aspect of all of these new systems is the ability to report out of it. Because ultimately, if you can't use the data that you're collecting, there's no value in collecting it. Well, other than you paying somebody data entry to convert it into something else you can actually use it in.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to pose these big ideas on you. I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow. Thank you again.